Release the beast and purge in our American streets. Your new founding fathers encourage your participation.
Why, in my day, you could buy meat anywhere. Eggs they had, real butter, fresh lettuce in the stores.
I'm from the year 2022.
Hold on,
That is 3 weeks in a row. Did not struggle.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
I struggled mostly because my can is really strong. I had to really force it to break through the tab area. That was kind of weird. It didn't work out more, I guess. Welcome to Movie Boners.
Hey, everybody.
We have a very fun show for you today. Well, we get
It's good.
it's going to be wild.
It'll be an interesting one.
I have a lot of things to say. Some of them are going to be controversial topics, probably, because that's what happens. It just comes out. I can't control it.
Oh, Lord. We're going to get a Jake rant today.
Yeah.
It's okay. There might be some ranting for me as well.
Okay.
And when I say there might be, I mean there's going to
Definitely,
be.
100%.
It probably won't be controversial. I just have ranting today.
Just in that mood.
Man, that's a great way to psych up the listeners, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to complain about shit today. Sorry, guys.
But not about you. We love you, the listeners.
We love you guys. You guys rock.
Yeah.
Unlike the majority of the movies we watched this week.
That I made Dustin watch this week. It's my fault mostly.
Oh my God.
I'll take credit
This
for
was
that.
a rough week. Not just with these movies, but in general. I'm so tired.
Mhm.
I've been working overnights and I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time during the day to get all these watched. No, because it turns out I need to sleep during the day.
Yeah, stupid body.
Yeah.
So the beer I'm drinking today is somewhat appropriate, at least. It is from the Berthoud Brewing Company. It is a double IPA, and it's named after a year that I think is more appropriate to place movies in the future into if you put them in the year 5030. 50.
Oh, there you go.
5030.
Okay. I'm not drinking one that's relevant to the show today because I just couldn't find anything.
Yep.
So I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm feeling kind of like I want something from home. I haven't had this since I first released it a while ago. So I decided to go with some good old Adele Brewing. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm enjoying some drum roll today.
Nice.
For those that don't know, it's a hazy pale ale. It's pretty good. If you don't like hops, don't drink this one.
Yeah. Hop forward for sure.
But kind of reminds me of home, so I like it.
Good. Yeah, mine's good too. But also very hoppy. Being double IPA, it'll do that to you. It's also 8.8%, so that's going to be good for the ranting later.
So Jake is going to feel good today.
So other things, we have a merch store if you're interested in any merch. I don't have my hoodie on because my wife has been wearing it. I've worn it about twice, and she took it since then, so I need to get another one.
Yeah, she posted the her picture of approval saying it covers the baby bump and it's comfy.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, she stole it from Jake. He got to wear it for all of a week.
Yeah, exactly. But I did get, with that, I also got some stickers. We have stickers and stuff. I don't know if you can see it. I have a fridge over here, and I put one on my fridge.
Hey!
But I also have these guys. They come in different sizes. This is the 3.5 by 5, and then there's a freaking big 5 by 7 one.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that 5x7 is awesome.
It's massive. I need to find something cool
It's
to put
huge.
it on. But there's two different styles if you want the projector or just the classic boners look. That's out there.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, my hoodie should show up in a couple weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple weeks until I get one because I still have to order it.
Yep.
Other things, I know that you have seen a new movie, at least one. You didn't go?
No. I have a story, and this leads into why this week
Oh,
sucked.
no. Okay, hit me with your story.
Okay. To our Texan listeners,
Yeah.
Texas.
Oh boy.
When it gets cold,
Mhm.
when it snows,
Yes.
yes, there was a shitload of ice. Okay. We get it. Ice is scary. Yeah. You guys, this state becomes the biggest fucking wimp in the country when it gets a little chilly, when there's a little bit of weather they're not used to. I mean, tail between the legs, tuck and run for cover, wimps.
Big talk.
Yeah, like seriously, I I even posted this on my personal social media. For all the tough talk, for all the persona that Texas is, wow, what a drastic 180 when there's a little bit of weather. So I had my ticket to go see what might be my second most anticipated film of the year. Because for those that know me, know I love the Jackass movies. I love the show, the crew. I mean, I basically grew up watching these guys. There's a lot of they bring up tons of memories with me and high school friends. I was texting one of my buddies from high school, who's also possibly our longest listener. What up,
John?
And I was stoked, man. I watched all 3 Jackass movies. I got up early on Friday to watch all 3 Jackass before I went and saw the new one. I get to the theater. I mean, roads are dry. The sun was out. Yeah, it was kind of chilly still, but the roads were dry. The sun is out. And Texas is still closed at noon on a Friday.
Oh, man.
Shops, stores, shut down still. I get to the theater, shut down. No signs, nothing. Found out they were closed until 3 p.m. due to employee safety. I'm from Colorado. We're used to shit like this. We're used to worse shit than this.
Yeah.
Texas.
Get your shit together.
Get your shit together.
Yeah.
So, no, I have not seen Jackass yet.
Right.
And it put me in a foul fucking mood. I was in the car driving back home from the theater, screaming and yelling and cussing everything out in the world. I was so mad, still am. And I will not be seeing it until possibly Monday morning.
Oh, man. Well, I have something that may make you feel better because
you didn't see it
I
yet.
did not see it yet.
Yes.
But I have another thing that'll make you feel better. I didn't know that would.
Okay.
That's kind of, mean on your part, but whatever. The thing that I thought would make you feel better is that you took the Jackass Forever in the draft. It is the first movie to come out in our draft, be released. Yep. Can I zoom in on this? What the hell is going on? So that means the IMDb rating is very high so far. That's good for you. And the box office is over 20 million. So right now you are very much in the lead.
I'll take it. I will take it. I felt like a fool. Because I had it all planned out. I posted the logo. I had the song playing with it. I was so excited. I mean, goosebumps. I was like, do I go online and just buy a bunch of Jackass swag?
Yeah.
Because I kind of want to. But then I was like, no, don't do dumb spending. You got other shit you got to buy. And then I get to the theater and it's fucking closed. So it fucking, God damn it. Texas, it's just winter.
Right.
I mean, okay. The roads on Wednesday night / Thursday morning when I was coming home, they're a little different than roads back home. But damn, folks,
you screaming "It's winter" reminded me of that time we went camping for James's bachelor party, and we went up to the Continental Divide, very high up altitude in Colorado, to stay at a yurt. And the yurt we got was set back from the road, and there was a bunch of snow, and we couldn't get to it. And then we talked to this park ranger. It was June. It was early June. And we talked to this park ranger. He's like, "Yeah, it's the winter."
It's winter.
I'm sorry. I am from Colorado, but that even is pushing it a little bit.
We're dumb. Our bad. We still managed to stay at a yurt, not the specific one we wanted. But we still, they gave us.
It was
one. easier
It was
access.
down by the road for all of the normies that didn't want to backpack in.
Right. Yeah. But
I say that all the time now. I'm like, yeah, it's the winter.
Yeah. It's like my coworkers are all like freezing their asses off, and they're like, "How are you not cold?" Because guess what? I'm still rocking my t-shirt, shorts, and hoodie.
Yeah.
I'm from Colorado.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we go and still do stuff outside. Like, it could be Death Blizzard, it could be Planet Hoth, and we're like, "Hey, we should go out." Yep, we should. Cool.
Okay.
It just so culture shock that ruined my movie going experience. It's okay. It's okay. I'll get to see it Monday morning. Mm-hmm. It will make Monday a good day.
Yeah. Look forward to it.
Yes. Yeah. And but from what I have heard, and I'm trying to not see anything, even though obviously there's no true spoilery things when it comes to Jackass, but I still I want to see the stunts and all this and all the gross moments myself for the first time. Like, that's part of the fun. But I did see a thing where a couple people I follow on Instagram have posted about it, and they were like, shockingly touching, makes you feel good, great. And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. This is going to be
I'm not surprised.
One. And I could totally see them doing this.
Exactly. I totally think so too.
Oh, but man, I could really use that pick me up after this fucking weeks of movies you made.
Yeah, that's a good transition. So this week's episode, we teased it last week, and I was very excited about it because I realized end of last year that Soylent Green, a big classic dystopian futuristic movie made in the 70s, is set in 2022. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. We'll do an episode on it. And then I realized that there's actually a lot of movies set in the year 2022. And it's kind of like the go-to year for movies that wanted a distant year out in 30, 40, 50 years from now. They all seem to have picked 2022, which is weird. And so I was like, okay, we'll watch 10 of them. I think there's 12 or 15, somewhere in that range of ones I could find. But I was like, we'll pick 10. These 10 are good. Yeah, and it turns out most of them I haven't seen before. I've seen I think I saw 3 of them before this week. The rest of them, there's a reason, mostly, for the most part. There's actually one that surprised me. I was like, this is actually a good movie that was lost to time, kind of. But overall, not great.
So, yeah, I did not get a chance just due to, I'm sleeping during the day and trying to do all this other normal life stuff. At the same, I did not get to watch which one was it? Alien Intruder from 1993. Okay. So my bad. I really tried. I just did not get to that one. I texted you and was like, dude, I have fallen asleep to a couple of these. Not me falling asleep to them had nothing to do with me not trying to watch it. I was just tired. I'm getting home at 7 a.m. Right. So
after a full day of work, and it's totally understandable.
Yeah, so I did miss one. I was kind of mad at myself. I'm trying. Which one are you bringing up first?
I was going to do them in the order I sent them to you. So Alien Intruder is actually first. And I was going to play the trailers for everybody that is watching the video version of this. And so you will be seeing it for the first time as well. That's good.
Yeah. Well, the one that I managed to stay awake for, we will get to, but I was like, I've seen some bad movies before. I've seen some real shitty movies. And then watching this one, when it ended, I was like, now how the hell did I manage to stay awake for this? And why the hell is this on Jake's list?
It's set in 2022.
I know, but I was like, this? We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah, so I'm very excited.
Introduce me to it.
Well, before we even get into the movies, I did want to touch on just generally the topic, which is, as we started talking about this, we started talking about the kind of the base problem or the base motivation or what can actually happen. You said something like it's weird when futuristic movies are suddenly in the past, or like why do movies even bother putting a year that's not that far off or something like that. And I think that's an interesting discussion to have, where should filmmakers date a movie and when should they date a movie? I tried to like come up with the different possibilities. And obviously there's the first possibility is making a movie with no clear timing. And we kind of talked about that last week with Sucker Punch specifically, where you get a movie that expressly uses things from different times, trying intentionally to not date itself, where there's scenes where there's a World War One like biplane in the same scene with dudes with, or chicks in that specific case, chicks with the guns from like the 90s and 2000s, and then a mech that doesn't even exist, so that's probably futuristic. So you are mixing things up and not setting an actual time, which is interesting.
Yeah, I stand firm in my opinion that movies should not put futuristic dates on in their timelines. I really think it's kind of not necessarily a bad idea, but just unnecessary one. And especially when you hit those years, I mean, Back to the Future was like a big famous one. You know, we've already passed the future.
Yeah, Back to the Future Part 2 is set in 2015.
And it kind of, I mean, I love Back to the Future, so it doesn't really take anything away from me. But now it's not, you're no longer in the future.
Right.
You know, we've passed that. So it does kind of take a little bit of that, like, I lost the word.
Part of the,
but it takes a little bit away
part
from
of the
it.
strength of that, the strength of that, like, impact of that story is seeing it as a kid in the 90s. You're like, oh, this is 30 years in the future. And so if kids come to Back to the Future today and they're like, this is a movie about the past, that doesn't make any damn sense.
Right. Right. And then watching these movies, and even one of the ones that we watched starts off, it was made in 2017, right?
Yeah.
And then takes place in 2022. And even like all of it just seemed like, no, this is still a bad idea. Like, so I'm very firm in my opinion. Stop dating the movies. If you want a futuristic movie, don't date it. Just make it futuristic. You can use visual cues to let your audience know, oh, this is not only in the future, but it could be set into the future. You know, if you want that look, do that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need a date. Stop giving us these years that it takes place in. Just make it timeless. Because then your movie has a better chance of longevity.
Right.
You know, it can stand longer. Luckily, Back to the Future is a strong enough story and entertaining enough where it can still hold up, even though we're past its time. But, I mean, the movies we watch couldn't even stand the test of like their release.
Right. These are not the best examples, obviously, but it is funny. But
it still stands because it's still, I can still use that argument because they really, now we're in 2022 and the shit that you and I watched this week is like, okay, you're exaggerating quite a bit, or, you know, there's no vampires and werewolves with glowing eyes
that you know of. They're secretly controlling the government. We'll get to it. But I think you're generally right. I think that it is a problem, or it is something to consider if you're making a movie, that the future eventually catches up, and it's effective at the time, like we said with Back to the Future and all that stuff. It's effective at the time, especially if it's a movie warning people about the direction we're headed and saying this is where we'll end up very soon. That can be important, but you're really limiting yourself to being specifically that time. And as soon as you get closer to it or past it, the movie loses its strength, or even the story or the message loses its strength. So I get doing that, putting it in the near future for that relevancy kind of factor, I guess. But a lot of movies that set themselves in the future, and a lot of the ones in this episode, just do it for the sake of being futuristic. And for some reason only pick 50 or 100 years. It would be different. They should do what Dune did, which is date it 20,000 years in the future. So far in the future,
you can
so
do
far
that.
in the future, it's in another timeline that they've had like time, like calendar shifts. Like we've had BC and 80. They've done so much that it doesn't even matter at that point. Or like Star Wars and just make it in the future, but in the past. Like it's actually like a long, long time ago.
Yeah. You could also do it. I mean, the MCU, I think, is a good example of being futuristic without the audience really understanding that it's futuristic now. Because they have not given you dates of current timelines. And then post Endgame is 5 years after. Well, actually, it's not. I mean, Endgame takes place 5 years after Infinity War.
Okay, so the movies are moving slower than,
but they never give you
than reality.
Yeah, but they never give you like the definitive year. They just tell you, oh, it's 5 years since this, the snap, and then they continue. And a lot of audiences are still kind of like having those moments whenever a character in the new MCU films are mentioning a 5-year gap. They're like, oh shit, that's right. They've all been like. I think that's a smart way to do it, especially that kind of time jump. But they never give you a specified year date. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
Because now we don't have to look at, it's this year. And then you expect as real time catches up to the fictional year. And then you're like, it does, like, it weakens those stories. It doesn't help that a lot of the movies we've watched this week are all pretty weak.
You are but, not working with a lot to start with.
But okay, we're not to it yet, but I can still throw in the jab now. We even watched one that was made 2 years ago. That should have had the best chance of showing potential future set in 2022. And personally, to me, I was like, this just feels preachy, and I have more to it, but we'll get to it. But even that one, I was like, you're probably the closest to what this year could potentially look like, but I think you're still pretty far off just with what you're trying to convey.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's definitely an interesting point. I also think that the oldest movie could be the most relevant. Or it helps that it's the best, actually, like story-wise.
I will say that. Like, Soylent Green is still a classic. It's still good. I was happy that was the last one that I watched.
Nice palate cleanser.
We ended on a good note.
Yeah. The other, I guess, two potential choices for choosing a timeline. Obviously, setting movie in the past, no real issues with that. I think you that's pretty cut and dry. You know what's going to be. But I've realized a couple months ago, I don't remember what movie I was watching, but I remember this was like a thing that happened a lot in like the 80s and 90s. It doesn't happen a lot today, but you'll watch a movie and then they'll have like a little text at the bottom that says present day. And that weirdly also doesn't hold up because I'm like,
it does not hold up at all. In fact, actually, I think it's a weaker choice than putting the actual year date on.
This is great. It's present day. And then they have like beepers and fax machines and stuff.
And you're like,
the clothes and hair and cars and stuff. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
They are still rocking 80s froze, and that does not happen today. I get fads come back, right? Fashions come and go, but there's certain hairstyles, and they're not coming back. Folks.
Absolutely.
I am an even less fan of the present day tag at the bottom of the screens because I think it's even weaker, especially when you watch older movies where you have past the present day and you're like, no. I would much rather no timeline than telling me there's a timeline when I didn't ask for it. And now I'm overthinking it
it becomes a whole thing, as opposed to just, I could just imagine it's just some alternate universe with some alternate timeline. And it's like, no, this is the real world in present day. And I'm like, no, it's not.
And there's also, you have to take in consideration younger generations. Right. So, because they're the ones that essentially are going to help keep movies going, or, this medium going, whatever form of storytelling. So if you tell them that it's present day, but then you're showing like beepers, like you said, or, those old computers where the screen is still like what it was in the early 90s with the green text, I forget the tech. I'm not technical. Folks.
No, I know what you mean, because about 5 of the movies in this episode had that.
Right. But you see that and you're like, and they're telling you it's the future or present day. And if we're going, nope, then the younger generations are automatically going to be taken out of that story, and you're going to lose, a lot of momentum for it, because now they're hung up on like, man, look at this old tech, look at this old stuff. And it kind of takes out of the experience. So I say, if you want to make a movie that takes place in the future, visual cues. Stick with visual cues. Don't give us an actual timeline. Just Star Wars does it really well.
Keep it vague.
Where they tell you like, hey, this is a long, long time ago, but there's never a date. But for us humans, we're like, hey, that means we are all gone. Maybe these are our like some form of extension, because they're humanoids in Star Wars. But like, that means that's taking place way, unfathomably in the future. So I think that's okay to go that route. Just don't give a time. You can just say, hey, this is far off into the future. Done. Right. Cool.
Yeah. Keep it vague. Or have a very specific history like Dune, where it's like, this is everything that happened for 20,000 years.
Right. But so I still stand firm. Don't date movies unless you make one that takes place in the past. You can date the past.
Obviously,
but don't date the future, because you're only setting yourself up for failure. You really
that was the fun thing of watching all these movies and seeing all the ways that they failed at predicting the future and what they thought the future would be like. So that's what we'll be getting into mostly. And the first movie is the one you didn't see, so I'll be talking about it mostly. Alien Intruder from 1993. It's really only notable for having Billy D. Williams in it from Star Wars fame.
Oh, okay.
Let me turn down. This audio is probably coming through. I don't want that. So the opening scene is the weakest part of it. It's like, it's really crappy at the beginning, because there's like a warehouse gunfight with these laser guns that sound like pump action shotguns. And but when you get further into it, it's actually kind of interesting, where it's about this. It takes place obviously in 2022, and it takes place on a maximum security prison spaceship. It's like the new Alcatraz, they say. And it has like this, I don't know. It's not a good movie, for one thing. It's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. I don't know if it was direct to video, but it kind of feels like that. But it does all of those things where it has like that old computer text from like the early 90s, late 80s, which I honestly kind of like. Like, I don't know, I feel like the aesthetic of those computer screens works pretty well in film compared to like new modern, real computers. So it didn't pull me out that much. But the interesting thing, which you're seeing here, is these guys are they they're not time jumping, they're in virtual reality. So they are in this prison spaceship, which you see here. It looks very blocky and weird. It looks like a TV show, basically. And they...
Is it about to turn into
No, unfortunately. But they recruit these prisoners to go on this mission to get this other ship that is like stranded in space or something. I don't really know. I kind of stopped paying attention at some point. But the interesting thing is part of their like incentive to do it is during the travel to the ship that they're going to rescue. Obviously, they are taken out of the prison, so that's kind of a perk. And they get to use this virtual reality system. And the virtual reality system lets them choose different timelines or environments that they can be in. And like one guy chooses like the Old West, and he's like chilling in a bathtub with like a chick who obviously takes her shirt off. And then there's another guy who's like an old like black and white Casablanca. There's a lot of Casablanca references, that guy. And then the one guy has just like on the beach in the 90s with like this super rich house. The one thing you learn about the future is there are still naked chicks in the future occasionally.
I mean,
it happens. But it's a generally concept's kind of interesting. The technology is obviously not great, but using virtual reality, especially in the 1993, it's kind of like Westworldy, I guess, almost.
Well, I would say we've got heavy VR stuff these days, so I guess they got that. I mean, our VR stuff doesn't look that real.
It looks like one-to-one human beings. And this girl, she shows up in like all of their simulations. She ends up, I'm going to spoil it. She ends up like turning all of the different crew members against each other. It is weird and bad, but kind of entertaining in a weird way.
Okay. Well, I always get a kick out of like older movies when people would get shot and it's like sparks that fly off of them. It's not like a gunshot, it's sparks. That will always be entertaining to me, so I guess it's got that going for it.
The space sets look like Mystery Science Theater almost. And a lot of these movies have massive fiery explosions in space.
I'm so glad you said it that way, because there were so many moments where I was like, oh, this feels like something Riff Tracks would just annihilate. I felt that through a good chunk of the movies we watched.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right, so that's Among the Shadows. That's a good time. The one I think you're most excited to talk about probably, though, that was Alien Intruder. The one you're most excited to talk about is Among the Shadows, which came out in 2019. Stars Lindsay Lohan. Doesn't star. I mean, she's the name. She's the biggest.
She doesn't star. She's just like
she's
there.
The only name you would know. She's the biggest face on the poster or whatever.
Dude. This movie. Yeah. Oh my god. There's so much wrong with this movie. I don't even know where to start. I was watching it and I was like, how? Why? What?
All the questions.
Like, you just, when your brain is like, you know what? This is done so poorly. I don't even think we can. Okay. I know where I'm starting, thanks to you playing this preview. The horrible,
green screen.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Yes, the green screen use is just unnecessary and unreal of how bad it is. This is a good example.
I have a feeling it was necessary. So the vibe I got is that they could only get Lindsay Lohan for about a day, maybe 2 days, and that she's not actually in most of the scenes.
That was going to be my next thought. But they don't just do it with her. They do it with a few of the people, and those are the parts that I think are unnecessary. But with her, yes. You're like, okay, was there like turmoil on the set and no one could work with her? Or was she only there for maybe an hour and they tried to cram in all of her scenes in an hour?
I think that because of she seems to be in green screen more so than the person she's talking to opposite. She seems to be more in an actual set, lit very differently, obviously green screen. And there's always reverse shots, like shot, reverse shot. There's only like one scene where she's actually in the same shot with the other actress. And I'm like, she's not there when she's talking to this person. I'm pretty confident of that.
So you had hinted at this movie last week where you're like, I think this was her like comeback movie, or at
Yeah.
least one of them, because she's been out of the spotlight for a while. Oh dear God, don't let this be her comeback movie. It can't be the comeback into acting. It can't. There's
Humanity
no way
will not allow
this was her. There's it.
This was the most like real scene where they're in the graveyard talking to each other. That was like the most like, and her hair is different. It's just so weird and funny.
There's so many weird decisions in this movie. The glowing lights and the hissing. So it's got werewolves and vampires. You never actually know the difference because both have glowing eyes and fangs. And
you only know the difference because they tell you specifically.
They tell you.
Lindsay Lohan specifically says that she's a vampire, and the main actress, Charlotte Beckett, who plays a character named Christy Wolf, is a werewolf and a private investigator.
Is a werewolf. It is, dude. I'm pretty sure like middle school children with iPhones could make a more coherent story than this movie. Middle school children with iPhones could probably make better special effects than what this movie has. There were times where I was like, I have to turn the TV up so freaking loud just to hear some of the dialogue. Did you
the
have
sound
that
mixing
too?
was weird in this movie, where the dialogue was kind of not crisp or elevated among the rest of the scene.
Right. And then when you hear it, you're like, oh, it still doesn't tell you anything of what you're supposed to know.
Yeah.
You're just like,
this movie had the most like fantastic premise, where it's a world where vampires and werewolves exist. They have taken over like politics, and this private investigator is just like related to this werewolf guy that gets killed. And she needs to investigate it, and Lindsay Lohan is the vampire. But it's the most fantastical premise, but executed in the most boring way. I had absolutely no interest in it, no ability to follow it. It was so confusing and boring.
it was so bad. I was like, to really, because I tried watching Geostorm first, slept through that. And then I tried watching, oh shit, what was the other one that I fell asleep during? Dark Side of the Moon. I fell asleep during that one. And then I was like, all right, I'll try Among the Shadows. Because I was like, I'm just trying to stay awake, but I didn't want to revisit those movies right away, just in case I was falling asleep because they were boring. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try something new. And I fucking stayed awake for this one. And I was like, what is happening to my brain? Did it just give up on me? Is that what happened? I couldn't believe this movie exists, dude. Oh my God.
And so they like over explain. There are things about werewolves and vampires that are cool, but it becomes less and less cool the more you explain, this is a silver bullet. We are using these silver bullets to kill these werewolves. Like, I get it. Everybody knows. Everybody gets it. You don't have to say it constantly.
Yeah. And then you get, man, you and I have watched so many movies, and so many movies have just random nudity and sex in on them. But usually you can be like, whatever. This one.
Yeah. It's like,
I was like, I don't understand why this scene just popped up. And why is it shot this way? And I can't go too detailed because my child is sitting a room away from me. Yeah. But I was very like, whoa, what?
Frontal, I think you could say. and random. Like, it's just some random chick that this guy is with that you have no connection to. And then she gets killed right away. And then the guy's like, oh, fuck. And then he gets killed. And you're like, oh, so This was like the most convoluted way to show that he gets killed or assassinated or whatever.
Yeah, I just God, it was bad. When I finished this one, like falling asleep to the other two, I was like, I can chalk that up to just being exhausted from work. But so I didn't have any opinion on those two. But watching this one and this one being kind of like the actual first one that I sat and watched, I'm not gonna lie, man. I was really worried for the rest of the list to watch. I was like, if this is how this starts.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's not great, but I think it does shed a light on a couple of the themes through a lot of these movies. A lot of these movies set in the future are dystopian or apocalyptic or in some way referencing a world that's worse than now. They have a very accelerated timeline for a movie that comes out in 2019. They're like, Brexit happened in 2019. It's very political. So it's like a political thriller with vampires and werewolves in a weird way. So Brexit happens in 2019. Then they anticipate Frexit, which I guess is France's exit from the EU, happens in 2020. Then they assume immediately the whole EU is disbanded in November of 2020. And then a whole new European Federation is created in 2021, which didn't happen, obviously. And then this guy who's Lindsay Lohan's husband, Richard Sherman, is appointed president of the whole European Federation in 2022.
Well, it's like, the world government has unified, and he's like the president of all.
My favorite line.
But you only catch that when the audio actually like clarifies at one point when she's talking, and then it dips out, and you're like, wait, is there more? Like,
my favorite line of the whole movie is where they're like talking back and forth, and one of the characters, I think it's the main character, she's like, both candidates were wolves. If only the humans knew. I was like, I see what you're going for. That both sides are part of the same unified thing, but it's in the most silly way ever. It's so funny.
It's just also so bad.
The lead character. Let me find out. This girl, not that girl. The lead character. Did you get a very strong store brand Kate Beckinsale vibe?
Yep. Oh, dude, as soon as I realized that it was about vampires and werewolves, I was like, oh, God, this is going to be a bad, like, Walmart version of Underworld, but it's going to be so much worse than that. And I was right. It really was. Like, it was worse than the Great Value.
Exactly.
This was... You know what this was? This was like clearance Dollar General DVD where they're like, you know what? It's not even worth $1, but we made it and you can get it for like 5 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the clearance bin at the Dollar General. It's that kind of movie. Yeah. It's so bad.
A funny thought I had during it, and it's funny that right before we started recording, we brought up Alex Jones just like as a joke. I don't know if you've seen the meme or the Joe Rogan thing where he's like, the globalists are interdimensional vampires. And that's what I had the thought of, like, this movie is kind of that, where the interdimensional vampires are trying to take over the world and all this stuff. I was like, this is like someone got high and then watched Alex Jones being high on Joe Rogan and wrote a movie about
it. And just happened to have Underworld playing in the background and thought,
this makes so much sense.
I solved the world government mystery. Yeah.
And they like, you know, the whole movie they set up for like a sequel. Nothing actually happens. That was the most frustrating part.
Nothing happens in the movie. It's so bad.
Like, you assume the main character is going to actually like succeed or at least fight, but there's no actual there's no fight. Nothing. Lindsay Lohan sends her to prison. She's like, well, I'm in prison. I'm gonna plan my revenge and get out and let the wolf out and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not gonna watch a sequel. What are you doing?
Why? There should never be more. This one should never have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kept thinking, like, damn, the drugs really ruined Lindsay Lohan's life. Like, if they made her so desperate for a paycheck, she did this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's true.
It's like, all right. If there was ever a catalyst to make a celebrity sober up and get their shit together, I feel like this should have been it for Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's the kind of thing that you play in like those Scared Straight seminars or something.
But for actors
like,
who you...
If you don't straighten up, you're going to end up doing this.
This is your brain on drugs. This is your it's that movie.
This is your acting career on drugs. Yep.
Yeah, instead of the broken eggs. Kids, that's a callback to a 90s PSA.
Yeah, it's a very popular.
Go watch it. It's kind of funny. It'll probably make you want some scrambled eggs. Because,
all right,
yeah.
So going back,
well, I'm ready for a different.
Going
movie.
back further to 1990, we have a movie called The Dark Side of the Moon, which, based on the trailer alone, I thought it was going to be like Moonfall, which is coming out this year. And then I actually saw it, and it's pretty different than
it's way different. I gotta say, honestly, dude, I did not mind this one. Like, it wasn't good, but I didn't mind it. I really didn't. The more the movie moved forward, the more I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
I can buy this one. I mean, the premise gets a little wonky, and by a little, really, I mean, it gets bonkers.
Yeah. And it very obviously borrows from the greats. I think that I noticed things that seemed inspired by Blade Runner and Alien, and especially the Thing.
Yeah.
John Carpenter's The Thing is kind of a main copy. But I agree. I thought that the style was cool. I thought that the acting was decent, and the story in general was pretty interesting.
It's an interesting story. It's a story that I've actually seen before, but it was kind of fun seeing that it had already been done like this specifically. So I'm a decent Doctor Who fan. I enjoy Doctor Who, but they have an episode very similar to this movie during the David Tennant years. And I like the David Tennant episode that deals with this kind of premise. So to see a movie that came out well before that, and I was like, oh, okay, I like the premise. They already kind of alluded to it in this trailer, but I will try not to say it, because I would say if you're a sci-fi fan, if you're like even a fan of Event Horizon, you know, the sci-fi horror, check it out. It's actually it's okay to watch. The opening's a bit of a struggle, but you definitely get those shots of, like, you can tell the whole dash of the ship is like cardboard with some LED light bulbs that they just push and pretend to do stuff. But I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was like a good movie, but it wasn't like, oh, this is the worst thing I've seen. This one was kind of like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't hate it. I could see myself, like, if this were to be on like a random channel and I was channel surfing, I would probably stop it on this and just let it play.
If this was like playing on Sci-Fi at night, I would be like, yeah, this is a good time. It's a fun fact. It's written by the twin brothers that wrote The Conjuring 1 and 2. And which I was like, hey, it's kind of fun seeing early work from and I think the most recognizable actor in it is probably Joe Turkel, who plays Dr. Tyrell in Blade Runner and the bartender in The Shining. But it's a pretty fun, interesting movie. It does all of the 90s sci-fi things, especially with like the computers and stuff. But they do an interesting thing where, like, the ship's AI computer is not like 2001, like, just glowing thing. It's actually like a human looking woman's face and body that they like boot up, and she like, gets lit up and then talks to them. It looks, I think that's a decent way to do futuristic where you don't know how good technology is going to be. Just make her a person who talks to you, and it works.
Yeah, and that actually does work, especially for being set in 2022 with a lot of crazy folks trying to boost the AI to be humanoid and all that. You're insane. You should learn from the movies and books. Don't do it.
That never ends well.
Stop it. I don't know how many red flags someone needs to stop being stupid. See, we're already I'm subtly ranting.
Building up to it.
Because it's coming, folks. It's coming bad. Yeah, I thought the portrayal of the AI in this movie, I kind of it was weird at first, but then it grew on me, and I thought, you know what? That's kind of fitting for these days because they're trying to keep it humanoid. I like the fact that although she looks human and she kind of responds like a human to certain things, I like that they still can't really physically interact with her, and she can't physically interact with them. So the AI is still controlled, and I thought that was a nice subtlety to it where there's no self-awareness there. You know, they're not, or she's not all powerful like we have seen AI get portrayed. It probably will be. Stop making them. She does. I mean, there is one moment in it where I was like, are they going to explore that more? Because that was interesting, and then they never do. So I was kind of bummed about that. Yeah,
I think it had the opportunity to be better than it is, but it's certainly not bad. Another interesting thing is this space shuttle shows up. So obviously they're on the dark side of the moon, but this space shuttle shows up, and there's no way they could have predicted this, but I think it actually works better nowadays where the NASA actually discontinued the space shuttle program in 2011. And it's kind of even more eerie that this shuttle just comes out of nowhere. And in the movie, they explain it as it, had crash landed on Earth at some point and gotten lost. But so it's weird for it to show up here. But even in our timeline, it still kind of makes sense as
you kind of makes
you shouldn't
sense.
be here. Works. That's a weird thing for it to just show up. So it's cool. It's one of the better predictions that actually works well.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't mind this one. Folks, go ahead and check it out. If you're a sci-fi fan, you'll probably enjoy it. Honestly, it's not bad. Not good, but not bad.
Yeah, it does what the thing does a lot, but in a not as good of a way. Obviously, the thing is a classic.
Yeah. I like that they keep alluding to the sex scene. Folks, don't worry. Nothing really happens on that. If you're a little uneasy about that, what you saw in the trailer is pretty much all you see in the movie. You do see a little more. Sorry. You do see a little more, but it's not. It's not like Among the Shadows.
Yeah, it's not like Among the Shadows or Alien Intruder, where it's like, you mostly made this in order to cast a naked lady, right?
Right.
Okay.
But
so Geostorm is next, probably the biggest budget movie on our list. Definitely the biggest budget movie on our list.
Yeah. It's the cleanest looking on the list. Well, no, it's not. It's not. Biggest budget, not cleanest.
From 2017, so not terribly far off or distant future.
Not terribly far off. I'm not a big disaster film fan. I think the last one that I really, really enjoyed was the first Independence Day. So 1996.
That may have been one of the earliest big disaster movies. There's a string of huge, mostly CGI disaster movies, and I think this came towards the tail end of it. I mean, now we have Moonfall.
I will say, I am not like I've never been a fan of Day After Tomorrow, and not being a fan of that movie really sets you up to not be a fan of Geostorm.
That's true.
And guess what? I thought Geostorm was awful.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's so bad. I was like, oh my God. Everyone in the movie, minus Jim Sturgis, who plays the younger brother who's politically
Yeah.
and
He worked
I forget, inspired or whatever. Like he has a political agenda.
and is
But I think
dating
he's
a
the
Secret
only
Service
one
agent.
minus which really
Hey, everybody can find love.
true. I didn't hate the movie, but I did not like this movie. Where I gave Dark Side of the Moon some credit of it was still entertaining. I didn't hate it. This one, I didn't hate it, but I will never watch it again.
I promise to never make you watch it again.
This was so dumb.
Yeah.
It was so stupid. So I was like, all right, so the movie, not only was the movie made in 2017, but they tell you in the beginning it's 2017. He gets fired. Don't worry, folks, it's not a spoiler. That it's part of the opening of the film. And then 2022 shows up. They have this huge global net and space station that they have managed to make in just a few years and do all of this crazy stuff and control Earth.
Right. It's like the International Space Station on steroids, where there's actually tools on it that they fly around the world and launch things into severe weather to control it and counteract it or whatever.
Yeah. And then because you have to have plot, things go wonky and bad things start to happen. And so they have to enlist him to help them find out the problem. So he goes
him
back
being
up
Gerard
to the
Butler,
space
who
station.
designed the Dutch boy system.
Gerard Butler. Yeah, which is the name of this whole thing. Okay. So the special effects aren't they're not bad,
but they're not the best.
They're not the best.
And it's a movie entirely predicated on special effects, which is a lot of the problem, I think. I was trying to think while I was watching it, I was like, why do I not care about these disaster movies? And if I want to watch an action movie, I'll watch Die Hard 1,000 times instead. And I think it's because there's nothing personal about the story or these characters, where Die Hard is very personal. You understand this guy is there, he's with his family, he doesn't have shoes, it's a pain in the ass, it's an actual significant situation. And here it's oh, the entire world is ending, and it doesn't seem that significant. I actually don't care about any of these people losing their homes or lives.
It doesn't help that automatically when you see a preview for a disaster film, immediately, unless you've never seen any of them ever, you as the audience already know the outcome of everything. There's no surprise element. There's nothing. And for the longest time watching this movie, I kept thinking, oh my God, I hated Armageddon so much. And then they made another one, but instead of a meteor coming for Earth, they made it a space station rebelling.
Well, one thing that
to the point, dude, I went on IMDb and was like, okay, did Michael Bay have anything to do with this movie? And did Roland Emmerich have anything to do with this movie? Because it has both of their names all over this thing. And then Michael Bay had nothing to do with it. And I was like, okay, so the guy making this just must love his style and must have this love relationship with Roland Emmerich. And sure as shit, he's like his writing partner. He's a big. He's done everything with Roland Emmerich, and I was like, oh no wonder I don't care about this movie. And then once again, I was like on IMDb going, I don't care about the spoilers. What? I'm just gonna read all the little tidbits because I'm kind of bored with the movie. And then I had to text you after a certain scene. So, by the way, the 2022 aspect, actually, minus the space station bullshit, and the weird, like, what do they call them? Their iPads are not iPads, but it's like this hologram thing that they all carry around.
It's like a super futuristic, this thing.
Yeah. So it's like a bar that they
not only is it like the screen is transparent, like you can see through all of it and it displays things like a smartphone or a tablet or whatever, but then they like flick it and it like folds up in like this weird futuristic way. And I'm like, this is made in 2017. It's 2022. Like in 5 years, you're not going to come up with this thing that's never been done.
We're not going to have that. I also can help that all the graphics, like what's on that screen right there. And then when you see the NASA war room, NASA disaster control area, whatever you want to call it, their giant screen. So when they show you the graphics on that screen, you know what it looked like to me? You know how when you finish an arcade game and it gives you the countdown if you want to continue?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what it looked like.
Insert another token.
But there was one part in this movie. Oh, you kind of saw it right there, actually. But there was one part in this movie where I was like, yep, I'm completely out of the story. Could not give a shit. Could not care at all. Like, any less than I do now. It's impossible. And I had to text you because it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen a movie do. And it was so unintentional that, you know, the filmmakers were like, this is we gotta show this because shocking twist, folks. It's a pretty preachy film.
It's like Al Gore's Inconvenient
Inconvenient
Truth with CGI special effects.
But shit blows up.
A lot more fire.
Yes, it is exactly that. So there's a part where this character gets in a smart electric car that is still plugged in, and shit goes kind of haywire. It's like crazy hot. The ground explodes and fire and shit's coming up out of it, right? And they do this close-up Fast and Furious style shot of him stepping on the gas pedal. It's an electric smart car. I was like, what? And then they show it speeding through a destruction through Hong Kong, and I was losing it. I was like, this might be the funniest thing I have watched in a long. Like, this is fucking hilarious. And they're taking it so serious.
Right.
I couldn't stop laughing after that. Him stomping on the gas pedal like he's gonna race Dom Toretto. I was like, this is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get shifting scenes?
Yeah.
Nope. It's a smart car.
Smart cars will be so popular and cool by then, I promise. There it is.
It's barely louder than a Prius.
I found it. He just races by himself.
So dumb.
It's not good. It's pretty
dumb.
Terrible. I will say though, even though the technology is way too advanced and the climate change is way too advanced, they're like, we're putting this movie out in 2017. In 2019, the East River swallowed New York. A heat wave killed 20 million people in Madrid. I'm like, what? No. First of all, I'm living 3 years past that, and that did never happen. Also,
we're gonna research it.
But the whole
that's not it.
I guess they try to use the Dutch boy satellites to control the weather, which is happening. They're trying to cloud seed clouds to get more rain and control the weather. We're, human beings are very full of hubris and all that stuff. But They then take it even further, where they try to use it as a weapon against the world and certain specific people to drop these giant storms on them, so that this one guy can rise to power. And that part was really funny to me. And then I was like, this is like, apparently when I was watching these movies, I was comparing it to real life or podcasts where people smoke weed. And I was like, this is like somebody watched a YouTube video about 9/11 conspiracies. And this is like if Bush did a 9/11 on steroids, because they're like, the government's going to the whole government's controlling the climate to kill all these people and other cities and demolish cities and all this stuff. I was like, okay, I get it. But it's also conflicts with your whole Al Gore and Convenient Truth thing. It's weird.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the most I can say is it made me laugh pretty hard watching that smart car. But the rest of the movie, I was like, I just don't care. I think Jim Sturgis, like, dude, do better. Gerard Butler,
yeah, do
better. Like, Butler, you're old enough to know you need to do better, because this was bad. Andy Garcia as the president, it's like, did you do this because you just haven't done anything since like the Oceans series, and no one wants to hire
Ed
you?
Harris is the Secretary of State. I love Ed Harris,
and Ed Harris was in it.
Couldn't save it.
But I was like, all right, this, wow. Some of the stuff they do. And okay,
here we go.
Quick rant, by the way. For a movie that just predicates itself on this huge soapbox of scientists are doing all this, we know all the ins and outs of every little thing in space, yada, yada. There sure is a lot of fire and a lot of loud explosions in space.
Right. If you want me to take you seriously as scientists, maybe make your science fiction a little more hard science fiction.
So, rant over, pretty short one. I think I delivered the punchline, though. So, yep. Oh, God, that whole, like, ultra freeze scene when they're running from the beach.
My favorite is when Gerard Butler goes out of the space station in a spacesuit and then, like, flies around and crashes into everything and just, like, there's some disaster, but it's, like, in the most low stakes, not serious way. They just, like, flying and crashing into stuff. And then he's totally fine afterwards. I was like, I've seen Gravity. Gravity is like a good way to do this, where you're like, "Oh shit, this is bad," and this is the opposite.
You know what I kept thinking as he's crashing across the whole side of the space station, destroying all of these like
solar panels,
antenna and other solar panels, all this stuff that is important to the function of the station, right? And then he's fine, of course, because that happens like halfway through the movie. So obviously he's fine. But yes, two things happening afterwards. So one, how does he manage to hold that panel that whole time? I'm like, dude, I can trip over one thing in my home holding something, and whatever I'm holding, that shit is going down. It is no longer.
You're not Gerard Butler.
It's just like not happening.
Apples and oranges.
I'm not Gerard Butler, but I'm an average human being, and average human beings, when you trip on stuff, you drop. You typically are going to drop something if you're carrying it, right? If you fall and crash into stuff, you're really not holding on to anything. But then, like, well, I guess this is kind of a spoiler. But he manages to, at one point during his whole crashing fest, pull out a small card and stuff it in the sleeve of his spacesuit. What? And then the other people come running up to him when he's fine, and he has no scratches on him at all. And they're like, "Well, you broke a couple things," and he's like, "I'm okay, thanks." And then they move on. Immediately in my head, I was like, "So that whole station is down now. Like, you're not functional at all now, right?" he just destroyed
Right.
a whole side. Like, we saw chunks blowing up
Right.
and floating.
I don't think
off
those
his
were
face.
extra antennas and panels and all this stuff. They were. You don't need those to operate. Yeah.
Spares. God, this is such a dumb movie.
Yeah.
Folks, it's so dumb. If you liked it, cool. To each their own.
Yeah.
I thought it was real stupid.
All right. Next movie on the list, Hell Baby. Speaking of stupid, but more intentional, at least. They knew what they were making when they made it.
Okay. I forgive this one probably the most on our list because although it's set in 2022, there's like no futuristic shit. There's no. They just for some reason decided 2022 was the year
came out
they were going to set
2013.
it
So
in.
they're like, this movie has to take place 9 years in the future. They got pretty much everything right because it looks like now, except people, not as many people wearing masks, I guess, is the only difference.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still people gathering. But so the movie forces way too much comedy, which is a fault. It felt like Scary Movie 3 or 4, where you're just trying a little too hard. But you know what? I still laughed at a handful of the stupid jokes and moments in this movie that I don't hate Hell Baby. I probably won't watch it again. I'll probably forget that I saw it.
Yeah,
but
I think that's a very fair assessment. Where it has funny parts. It's obviously spoofing or making fun of the trope of a couple moving into a haunted house and intentionally trying to remain oblivious to that fact, even when everything tries to tell you it's haunted and you're in danger. But
everything about everything's bad.
And I think a big reason that I forgive it so much is because I am such a big fan of all of the comedians in the movie. There's so many, obviously written and directed by these two guys, Robert Ben Garrett and.
If you liked Reno 911, you'll probably
Robert Ben
like
Garrett
this
and
one,
Thomas Lennon, who did Reno 911. They are the priests in the movie, and they are very funny. But everybody else, Mike Leonback, Black, Rob Hubel, Kumail Nanjiani, Ricky Lindholm, Keegan-Michael Key. There's like tons of these like comedians in it. And so you could tell they're just making it because they want to make a funny movie and have a good time, which I always enjoy. But they do they're more than once, several times, they push something. They repeat something that is funny so often that it starts becoming not funny. Like they extend the same scene and they're like, okay, that's not funny anymore. And then it starts becoming a little funny, but it's not that funny. They push it on too long. And they do that more than once.
A lot of the jokes lose traction. A lot of them do. I think it's kind of I was like, you have to watch the movie for the Hell Baby to really, she's pregnant with a kid. And they're in a haunted house, but they focus more on the haunted house than they do the pregnancy for the majority of the movie. The pregnancy is almost an afterthought, almost like when they were writing it, they got so caught up in trying to spoof haunted house tropes that then they were like, "Oh shit, that's right, she was pregnant. We gotta."
To the point where I actually was confused by that. I had to pause it and start thinking about it. I was like, whoa. Once we got into it, I was like, was the baby evil the whole time, or did the house turn it into an evil baby? I'm confused.
It's still a question that's up for debate. I don't know which one you go.
It may not matter.
I liked Keegan-Michael Key in it. I thought it fit his sarcasm and Key and Peele style sketches. It felt like he was just bringing that back into it, so I enjoyed him in it. It's if you come across it and you're drunk, you'll probably really like it.
That's probably accurate. It has a 4.9 on IMDb, and I was like, that's fair. It's totally average. It's fun, not bad.
I'd probably give it a 5.1, maybe 5.2, so not much improvement, but I'm only giving it that because I did genuinely laugh a few times, especially at the beginning when it wasn't overdone. There were several parts at the start that I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. I thought the two priests having their super gross conversation where all they say is, "Oh, gross." Yeah, super gross.
And they're
thought
like
that was
Italian
funny.
accents.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
in horrible Italian accent.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like that was a good joke. But yeah, I thought this one I had to question it. I even went on Google, Jake, to clarify. Like this takes place in 2022.
Well, I think it's the only
This
one
is
that
a
doesn't
2022
tell
movie.
you with text at the beginning, this is 2022. And so it doesn't seem obvious.
Right.
But if you go and look at the plot, and anywhere that you look, it says, in 2022, this happens with these couple.
Yep. It flat out states in 2022. So I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Technically, it's there. But I didn't hate it. I mean,
Right.
I've seen worse.
I laughed at worse.
I've seen worse. Yeah.
Okay.
So
next.
see,
That's true.
I didn't hate all of them, Jake. Like, there's been a couple where I'm like, you know what? Not the worst. Geostorm was really bad, though.
Yeah.
That was a bad movie.
So this next
was-
one I thought was actually surprisingly good as well. So No Escape.
You and I are on the same page. I thoroughly
Okay, good.
enjoyed
Yeah, No
Escape.
No Escape from
Genuinely enjoyed
1994,
this
which
movie.
is very different than the one with Owen Wilson and Pierce Brosnan. In 1994, there's a movie called No Escape, apparently on HBO Video, which might mean that it didn't actually go to theaters. But I feel like it's a lost gem movie, kind of, where Ray Liotta is in it. And there's this whole opening train sequence where it's all red out. And I was like, oh, this must take place on Mars. And then I was so confused when all of a sudden they're like in like rainforest and waterfalls and stuff. I was like, what the hell's going on with Mars?
Right.
And then I'm like, oh no, this is just Australia on Earth. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting concept. I like the idea of like, there's no good guys in the movie. Like, he's a criminal.
He's a murderer, but I felt like he was a good hero in the sense that
he's the closest to a hero, but at the core of all of the movie, they're all criminals. Even the like warden who is
for sure
a criminal. He's kind of the one that has been fueling this whole like division
and the warden,
on this island.
or the whole business. The warden is kind of at the center of the prison business. The premise of the movie is that in the year 2022, there's an international prison system operated by private corporations. And so criminals from all over the world are sent to Australia again, like back in the day, sent to Australia as like the world's prison and then exploited for profit. And prisons are a really big business. And so the warden is kind of like the center of that, where he's trying to like control everything. And obviously one of the main villains of the movie.
Yeah, and I liked that they brought back that little bit of like, oh no, they're sending all the criminals to Australia. I was like, hey, there's a lot of people that don't know that history, but that was a thing.
Yeah, it's like
folks, look that up. It's a thing.
It was a whole penal colony that it became a country, and then it kind of makes sense that history may revert back in the future. So I liked that part.
Yep. I thought it was real interesting, directed by Martin Campbell. I was like watching it going, man, that name sounds so freaking familiar to me. And then I looked it up and was like, oh,
he directed GoldenEye and Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. I was like, oh, wow. He did.
Yeah, I was like, man, he directed
GoldenEye
the best
right
ones
after,
ever.
like the year after this, he did GoldenEye.
Yeah. Which I was like, hey, you know what? GoldenEye compared to this is a way cleaner looking movie. It looks like it had a bigger budget. Obviously, it's a Bond, so it's going to be bigger budgeted. But I was like, there was a lot of stuff in this movie once I realized what director I was watching that I was like, oh, okay. I could tell that you took this kind of sequence and improved on it when you made GoldenEye. So I thought that was really telling of Martin Campbell as a director, of being able to utilize what he was learning and just keep improving on it. I thought that was really cool. I noticed that. I got a big kick out of this whole like Lost Boys on Crack kind of feel to this movie, mixed with like I saw someone say it was like Battlefield Earth. I've never seen Battlefield Earth, so couldn't tell you.
I haven't either.
But
I should.
I was like,
Yeah.
this came out way before that, so maybe Battlefield Earth stole its look.
Yeah. I got
this
kind of
but
I got
I
kind
didn't
of
mind
a
this movie at all.
Waterworldy vibe based on just like their outfits and
Yeah,
they're like
yeah.
so he's in prison. He refuses to submit to any authorities, so they send him to like this island which has apparently a bunch of other prisoners who didn't want to be in the prison, and they're split into two groups. The outsiders, which are these like barbarian warring faction kind of guys, and they're really big. There's like 600 of them, and then there's a smaller group, the insiders, which there's like 100 of those guys, but they're more peaceful and technologically advanced and stuff. And so he tries to join them.
Yeah, the insiders are trying to legitimately make a way of
as
life.
Best they
like,
can.
Hey, we got to work. We have to they're like, we got to maintain the land. We have to do what we need to survive and work off of this. Whereas the outsiders are like Mad Maxi, where they're like, that guy controls it. He'll murder anyone that argues him. And he does. But, okay, so I think I also enjoyed this movie for the added tiniest little, like, such an random thing. So there is dialogue in this movie that is used at the beginning of a song by my favorite band, Godsmack. So, yes, so their self-titled debut album, there's a song on there called Immune, and they use dialogue from the warden at the start of Immune. And like when I heard the dialogue in this movie, I had always known that they took it from a movie, but I could never remember what movie it was. So when the warden said the lines, I was like, What? I was like looking it up. Oh my god!
Bizarre coincidence.
So this movie took several jumps up for me just based on like I inadvertently finally saw the movie that this dialogue from my favorite band. Yeah, I was like, this is so fun. I get that I could have just Googled it, and
but to have it pop up randomly is so funny.
Yeah. So I didn't mind this one, and I agree with you, Jake. I think it's kind of a hidden gem. I think, folks, you should check this one out. It was kind of nice watching Ray Liotta in a totally different role.
Yeah.
He's not a gangster. He's not even like a tough guy. He's just this dude who's like, leave me the hell alone, and he gets roped into
he's like
fight
skilled. He's like a special forces guy that was sent to this prison because he killed a guy, obviously. But he kind of blows a dude in the head during the opening. His commanding officer in public, which is cool, and for a good reason. You'll find out. So it's a good movie. You should.
He does have a reason, but he's still kind of a criminal. But no, I didn't mind this one at all. I was like, hey, this was the most pleasant, surprise.
I felt the same way. One. All right. The next one, the seventh one on the list, is The Purge, which is obviously very well known for being a franchise now. But
it's a full franchise now. And you and I have we've both stated that we're fans of this movie. So this one was just kind of a nice, hey, I get to revisit The Purge. I already know the movie. It was nice for me to watch it after being so disappointed in so many others on this list.
Yeah.
So it was nice to
it's like a grounding thing. I'm like, I know there will be at least one or two movies I will like that I'm excited to watch.
Yeah. And this one, everyone has been joking since this movie came out that are we just going to do The Purge? And I'm like, I don't think we're going to go that drastic.
As we were watching it, my wife was watching it with me. She's like, okay, so what's our Purge plan? Because she's like, when does this happen? And so I had to Google it. And I'm like, well, it happens on March 21st every year. She's like, okay, March 21st, we're not going anywhere. We're going to lock down just in case somebody gets a little crazy trying to reenact it. I was like, I don't think that's going to happen, but.
Yeah. I found myself as well thinking of okay, where do I go? What do I like? I mean, I'm in Texas, so I feel if there was a real purge, it probably would be short-lived.
Yeah,
honestly.
You can't just start in 2022, and the movie itself doesn't start in 2022. It starts in like 2014 when they start like slowly putting the things in place and getting people acclimated to it. But shockingly quickly, in 8 years, they're able to get people totally on board with this holiday. It happens every year. People are living with it or fine with it or even celebrating it. I was like, that's extreme, but also within the realm of reality.
Well, yeah, people, like you said it. It's treated as not just like, oh, there's a purge day for people to get their shit out of their system. They treat it like an actual holiday. Like they legitimately celebrate the purge day, which I was like, man, human nature is so fucked up that I could actually see us doing this. And then I found myself thinking,
I'm ready.
Are you ready, Jake? I think you'll appreciate this. We might actually be in a purge, but it's every day, and it's called cancel culture.
Yeah, kinda.
Because the whole premise of this movie is the people that are attacked are like the homeless or people that don't put like all this other stuff ahead of them. They're trying to just make their own way. And then also the people that get purged are the big famous ones, the ones that flaunt their lifestyle.
And especially the ones that don't celebrate the purge. They don't buy into the whole system. There's a whole thing where you like get these blue flowers and put them out outside your house to show that, oh, I support the purge. Please don't kill me. Please don't cancel me. And that is very much like that. Or like in 2020, we saw those people putting up like, I support Black Lives. Please don't burn down my store. And then people still burn down their store.
Yeah. But yeah, I started thinking of that too. I was like, oh my God, was the purge trying to warn us of cancel culture, essentially?
That's an interesting take where it's more of a reputational killing than an actual physical killing or economical. That certainly makes sense.
So that's
okay.
That's my hot take for today. I thought you would appreciate that. I was like, man, I bet I get an oh shit moment from Jake. Plus, I genuinely enjoy The Purge. I think it's kind of an intense film. The premise is brutal. I think the cast, the acting, the writing sells it really well. It's not the perfect film, but there are parts in it that I'm like, man, this is... it has moments where you find yourself thinking, this almost feels too real. Like, not with the gore and the death scenes themselves, but the way humans act and respond in this movie. There are parts where I'm like, oh, I could see people.
Yeah,
really
I think it's a really interesting, especially original movie. There were a lot of really good, interesting original movies that came out and were super low budget. This is another one that was really low budget. I think they only like 19 days to film it or something, 19 days to shoot it. And then those movies like Paranormal Activity is another example, super low budget, filmed super quickly, but such a good idea that they're like, okay, we're going to make 1,000 of these now because they make total sense. And it just kind of found a little niche that worked really well. I think that there's a lot that works in the movie. It's very interesting and deep. I see why they made so many of them because it just focuses on the premise is crazy because there's one night a year where all crime is legal. And so they often focus on the fact that murder is legal, but that you can do so many interesting things with all of the other kinds of crimes that you could commit or be involved in that make it work.
Right. Well, and I also think it's really interesting that the murder aspect is what gets focused on the most. Obviously, they use that to drive the horror element of the film and the story, but you do, or at least I was thinking at the same time, like there's so many other crimes. So what other crimes are actually going on? Because if everyone is immune to repercussions of all crimes, that means like there's some pretty powerful people that could just blatantly and openly.
Well, not everybody is immune because my favorite little detail is when they do the public service and emergency announcement at the beginning, they're like, You can
True.
use class
True.
4 weapons and below, and everybody except for politicians of class 10 and above are like
True.
able to be victimized. And so they're like, okay, all of you peasants go ahead and kill each other, but us at the top of the political level, you can't touch us still. We're not you can't, extract your revenge or whatever.
True. Yeah, I was like, man, this is it's an interesting way to exploit or kind of put to the forefront just how deranged people could potentially let themselves be, and kind of blindsided by just I can destroy this person's life, so I'm going to, like, that kind of mentality of I'm able to do this, so I might as well. And there's no, like, when you have no repercussions, it's kind of like the faceless trolls on the internet. Like, when there's no actual repercussions to you, you can do whatever you want. I getting older and current times, watching this again, I was like, man, I feel like this movie has a lot more to say that none of us paid attention to, or maybe I'm just like trying to find something real hidden there or whatever. I don't think my hot take on this could potentially be kind of a metaphor for the cancel culture. I don't think that's that deep of a look. To me, it's kind of like,
well, yeah,
oh, no,
I think
right
it's
there.
great because it lures you in with the surface concept of a horror movie about these people that can do whatever they want, and there's no emergency services, there's no police, there's no ambulances to help you. It's like The Strangers, like elevated 1,000%, where the whole city is doing that.
Yeah,
but I think that it's especially interesting, kind of the whole the fact that the story itself is deeper and politically, like, the conspiracies of it and everything is interesting, where how far will people go, or what are people willing to accept if they think that it's for the greater good or the common good. And so this whole thing has been allowed to become common, a national holiday, because they're like, this is good for the country. Crime is a lot lower. Poverty is a lot lower because criminals and poor people are being killed. But they're like, this is for the greater good, so we're going to allow this. We're going to legalize this whole atrocities.
Well, right. They claim, like, hey, crime's low, poverty is low, like near gone, right? But it's because they're not actually solving the solution. They're just killing people.
Every year you just kill all the poor people
and
the more criminally predisposed people are getting killed and all that stuff.
Right. So you're not actually solving any issues. You are... It's a Band-Aid that's eventually going to come off.
And I think it works on another level too, where it's kind of, I mean, there are historical atrocities that people celebrate still, or not really even celebrate, but sometimes just ignore the complexity of them and say that, oh, this is the best, or this is great. And I think that's interesting too, where there's a kind of a cult mentality where they just like, oh, the new founding fathers created this thing, we need to just abide by that no matter what, no matter how disgusting or terrible it is, or terrifying it is. And I don't know, I think it's a great, deep, clever, and like really smart movie about a lot of things with some scary moments in it. Like, it's a pretty good horror movie just on its own.
Yeah, there's some intense scenes in it. I'd be curious to see what kind of hidden messages or whatever that the writer actually and the director actually put in the film compared to what we took from it. And then at the same time, art is subjective. So I kind of like not knowing what they may have purposely put in, and kind of like how I take it. But yeah, this really struck me as, hey, this movie's a little more relevant than just
and the writer and director of
The
Purge, obviously we didn't talk about it, but The Purge has Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey in it. the writer and director James DeMonico, he worked with Ethan Hawke quite a bit. So he's written more movies than he's directed. The first movie he directed was Little New York, which also had Ethan Hawke in it. But he wrote Jack with Robert Williams. He wrote The Negotiator. He wrote Assault on Precinct 13, which also had Ethan Hawke in it. So he makes cool movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
We have 3 more.
All right.
And this next one is the most recent one, the one you alluded to, Safer at Home, which came out in 2021.
Yep.
It is a very COVID-centric film from 2021 that takes place in 2022.
As in, it's literally about COVID and the pandemic not coming to an end. So this movie was boring.
It's also filmed in like not found footage style, but like a Zoom found footage style.
It's an like hour and a half Zoom meeting that starts off with these groups of friends trying to have fun. They do drugs together.
They're quarantined at home trying to make the best of it.
And then, there's curfews being
enforced by the government.
Thank you. God, I'm just losing the word. Good thing you have a podcast, man. Curfews are enforced by the police. When police show up to your house, you have to like stand in one place, have your mask on, no contact kind of stuff. So the group of friends are having dinner. Obviously, shit hits the fan. Otherwise, there's no plot. Dude, okay. I didn't care for the Zoom meeting style, but I kept telling myself, like, this, I mean, it could potentially get interesting. If maybe they're going to do it kind of like a, oh my God, Rear Window kind of style. I thought that could be an interesting take, right? And you kind of get that feel that they try to do something like that, but then it just gets...
I've seen more movies than I should with a Zoom style, Zoom meeting style. And I would say this is one of the better ones that does that, but it's still not a great way to tell a story.
But it puts such a bad taste in my mouth because I'm like, man, I fucking hate Zoom meetings. Yeah. Granted, we do it every week, but we kind of live states away.
It's not a great premise. I thought like the end stuff was better where he like leaves the house with his phone, and it is more kind of like a Cloverfield feel a little bit where you're kind of seeing the National Guard and stuff
but even there's just so many like my problem with the whole ending is how many inconsistencies there are. This one was not for me. I didn't hate it as much as others, but I also found myself like they made this at the height of COVID, of the pandemic, right? Did we need to have more of this shit shoved down our throats? Did we need like more of the hey, life sucks during
and that's
pandemic? Really no. I personally did not need it, and it put such a sour taste in my mouth. I was like, the whole movie, I was just like, I'm only watching it because it's on our list.
And that's really all it is more of, here's a thing that we're all experiencing. What happens if this other thing happens during it? There was another COVID-related movie called Songbird, which I thought was better because it had more of an actual message or point to be like, and it sets itself further in the future. I think it's like 2024, but it's like, if we keep going down this path and what happens, what could we end up in a more of a future, dystopian future kind of thing, which I thought made more sense than this movie, which was more of just like, here's these friends that had an accident, which ends up not meaning that much, and it's not great.
Dude, I'm sure people out there are I could see plenty of people enjoying this movie. It just wasn't for me.
It's not bad, I mean, but it's just
you.
Meh.
But I won't spoil it, but there is a moment towards the end of the movie that when it happened, I was literally like, "Oh God damn it!"
Yeah.
Like, really, like, oh joy. It's like, yeah, this one just was not for me. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel intense by it. I had nothing during this movie, man. I mean, it's crazy watching this preview because they showed the Zoom stuff, but then they're trying to make it look super exciting, like driving around at night. You see all the homeless and their communities, but the movie's not that exciting. In fact, actually, what you see right now, that's like 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah, none of the actual like interesting stuff happens till the very end.
Right. Yeah, I think my biggest beef with this movie was simply just like, really? You just had to capitalize on everyone's misery right now? You thought, ooh, what if we had this happen during a Zoom meeting? Well, yeah, but it's like during COVID. Yeah, like, shut the fuck up. You and we watched a whole independent film, like, award stuff, right? All these independent films that were done better.
Yeah.
Some of them were even COVID related, and it was done better, more interesting, more intense. Like it felt better watching those films. So shout out to those.
We talked about a whole group of people that used,
in my opinion,
Zoom to reenact the entire like first 2 chapters of Watchmen, the Watchmen comic book, and did it in a very creative way. Obviously, it could have used more polish, but was more interesting, at least on the surface, than this.
Yeah, I think my big beef was we don't need you capitalizing on our misery when it comes to COVID. Everyone's fucking miserable with this. Like, stop.
Yeah, that's true. So,
but I thought the escalation was interesting. With the variants, I thought that was like, okay, if I had to give the movie any credit, I'll give it credit with the variants. I thought that was kind of
accurate,
not
at
good,
least.
but like, oh, all right,
yeah,
it somewhat to a point.
So,
all right, our next 2022 movie
called In Exile. It's also known as Time Runner. I think it was first released as In Exile and then changed its name later to Time Runner. Stars Mark Hamill, the great Mark Hamill from Star Wars fame. I think he was in a lot of sci-fi movies after Star Wars, and this was just one of many. I saw it described as a low rent Terminator movie, and that's pretty accurate.
It's pretty accurate-ish. Dude, this movie is like...
Yeah,
it is horrendously
not good at all.
Like this movie was
it's Mark Hamill plays a guy in the future in 2022, and the Earth is being attacked by aliens from space. And okay,
I'm going to pause you there because I know both of us had when we started this movie. I know we both had the same thought during the opening of this movie. Okay, so I have to pause you with the attack from the aliens and him flying away on his escape pod. Dude, it looked like they just, it wasn't even, they didn't even try to hide ripping off of the infamous opening shot of Star Wars. Like, it's the exact same shot with a smaller ship. But it's the exact same
but somehow
shot.
Worse even than Spaceballs as far as quality and everything.
Oh, dude, like, it was so...
Good.
I was just shaking my head when I saw it. I was like, wait a minute. Is this movie... Like, I saw the Terminator comparison, I saw the opening, and I was like, but this looks like it's ripping off Star Wars.
Yeah,
like, that's the shot. That's the... like, that's it. I felt bad for Mark Hamill in this movie, man. It felt I honestly, dude, I got the same vibe watching this movie as I did watching Ryan Reynolds in Green Lantern, where you're like, you were forced. This is a contract movie. You did not get to say no to this one. You are phoning everything you are doing in.
Right.
Because one, we know you're a better actor than this. And you're a better, like you're better than this. We know this for a fact, but you are really bad in this movie. The plane. Oh my
so
god.
The premise is that it's only partly futuristic. It starts in 2022, but then he goes back in time through this wormhole in space and goes back 30 years to 1992. So most of the movie takes place in 1992, and he is continuing to get these like wormhole visions of the future where things could happen or will happen. And then he tries to change them, tries to change the future, change the destiny to make sure that the alien invasion in the future doesn't end up happening and save the Earth. That's the main plot of the movie. And,
yeah. Dude, those futuristic wormhole visions are like...
yeah.
Who thought of this? This was that movie, man, where I was like, this is a Riff Tracks movie.
And they're not like
1,000%
explained at all. Like here's one where he is seeing as somebody kill his mom while his mom's pregnant with him, and it's just like projected on a wall basically, and he just like is experiencing it. It always looks terrible.
And then everyone around him,
the girl or scientist doctor lady with him can experience it as well. That's why she first believes that he's actually from the future. She's like, "What in the hell was that?" And then there's long stretches of the movie where there's just this gun battle in the future. So they cut back to like the original invasion of the aliens. And there's just this shootout that goes on for the longest time with no real changes in plot or movement of the story. But these guys just shoot back and forth at each other to the point where I was confused. I was like, who is this? What's going on? Yeah, like
you forget.
Does this matter? What's happening? And but I mean, the at least they don't do like lasers and stuff. The guns are like 80s, 90s guns, but they're still closer to what we have now, at least.
Yeah, dude, this movie felt like a soap opera made for TV movie that was going to air at like 12:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, by the way, this plane sequence is my favorite part of the whole sequence because of how horrible it is. I would rewatch that plane sequence, not the movie, that sequence, because they are crashing this plane. It is going down, and it's like literally in the cockpit. Oh, we're crashing. Perfect.
Oh, I'm glad we landed safely. Let's move on.
In this open field. Oh,
yeah, it's pretty great. And the music is constantly like, this is so exciting. This is so intense. Like through the whole movie, to the point where I'm like, I get it. It's over.
Right. By the way, to those only listening, I was moving around in my
really
chair
good.
simulating
That's really good.
crashing a plane. It was pretty good. It was pretty accurate to how they shot it in this movie. It was
shot for shot remake, basically. The other funny thing is he goes back in the time and he has to like find this senator who's being elected or campaigning to be elected, named Senator Neela, which is very obviously the word alien backwards. And they show it all over. Like there's so many signs that say Neela, Neela, and I'm like, okay, so you're one of the aliens that's in charge of getting the invasion to come to Earth.
Yeah, right. Like, so there's no revelation here.
You.
We all know.
Yeah.
Like it made me chuckle because of like it was a pretty bad movie. It was so bad, but I was chuckling because I really hope Riff Tracks did pull this one aside and watch it. I kind of want to try and find and see if they did.
Well, they just showed you the whole senator becoming like reverting back to his alien. Yeah.
They showed you the whole
Well,
ending.
he did
Like,
stop
they
the
showed
aliens and
entire
save time,
film.
and then
Okay.
disappeared from the past, and the whole ending. They showed you all of it.
Wow. They literally show you the entire. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
probably.
Were all previews
And all
like
of the
that
made
in
for
the 90s?
made for TV ones because
No.
that's all they had to show you. All the good parts.
Yep.
They. It's funny that like so many of like Star Wars actors did so many bad sci-fi movies. We already talked about Billy D. Williams. Apparently, Carrie Russell, not Carrie Russell, Carrie Fisher. Thank you. Carrie Russell's a different actress. Carrie Fisher did one in 1987 as an Australian time travel movie called The Time Guardian. Like they did so many of these terrible ones. I'm sorry, they can't all be Blade Runner. Like Harrison Ford won that.
It makes you wonder if they all looked at Harrison Ford and were like,
bitch.
That jerk.
You
Fuck
got
him.
Ridley Scott and then just won it all.
Fucking Han Solo, Indiana
a little
Jones.
unfair.
What the
Kind of
fuck is going on?
Yeah, soaked
He
up
had
all
the
the talent.
blow-up career. God damn it. We're the stars of the
Yeah,
movie.
it is what it is.
Sorry,
So yeah,
guys.
In Exile or Time Runner, whatever the fuck it's called. Not great.
Yep. No. I mean, it's if you're a Mark Hamill fan, Star Wars fan. If you're a Star Wars fan, you should at least watch it because there are plenty of moments in it where you will laugh and be like, wait a minute, I've seen that. And I'm so glad that the wormhole spat him out in his hometown around where his mom would be.
Yeah.
All in this perfect area.
A couple days
where
before his
all of his
birthday.
visions take place.
Yeah.
Like, man, that was just... That wormhole was kind to set you up to change the history of events in the future.
Yeah, pretty convenient. All right. Our last movie from 2022
All
is
right.
the big one. Soylent Green from 1973. And the trailer, I'd never seen the trailer before, but I watched it before this. I don't want to spoil Soylent Green, so you have to see it. It's one of those big movies. I don't think it's as popular or known as like Planet of the Apes.
I would see, and I don't know, because I feel like everyone already knows.
I feel like
Soylent Green. Like, whether you've seen the movie or not,
Okay.
I feel like the general audience knows the tag of Soylent Green. But we'll just, for you that haven't,
I still feel like when I hear
spoiler-free.
it referenced in like current media, like shows or movies or something, it seems like a kind of a deep cut or niche or a nerdy reference that most people don't know, especially nowadays. Not a lot of kids are returning to 1973 movies, but it's not as known as like Planet of the Apes. Everybody knows the end of Planet of the Apes pretty much, but the end of Soylent Green, I feel like you need to experience. So we're not going to spoil it, but the trailer is super cheeky about what the ending is. It's really funny if you watch it.
So I saw this when I was young, and I think I only ever saw this like once or twice when I was a kid. I was trying to think of that when I was watching it again. I was like, man, there's a lot of it I don't remember, but some of it I do. And not just the ending, but like, so I'm rewatching it, and those shots of like the poverty and the masks. I had to pause the movie, dude, and was like, hold up. Like,
the opening is so fun because it's like quick shots of like old, 40s, 50s, 60s life. And then it's just like starts slowly getting worse, and cars are piling up and rusting out, and there's trash everywhere. And then all of a sudden there's like like 2 or 3 quick shots of people wearing masks like today, and I'm like, oh no. No.
Right. I immediately was
real.
like, nope. Wait a minute. I don't remember that. It's a very interesting film. I want to revisit it. I want to watch it again. And just kind of like not be exhausted when I rewatch it and just really soak it in. Because this movie has a lot in it. And there's a lot of... it says a ton of stuff. It
Right.
has so much to tell you as the audience of like, kind of pay attention to what's going on around you. Maybe put a little extra thought into a
Right.
couple things that you're.
The thing that I always
or
take away
hearing
after watching
even.
it, like I always am filled with a appreciation for the world and like all of the little things you take for granted. This movie will make you like really appreciate the things you take for granted, like walking outside and seeing the blue sky or animals or beautiful scenery that is just gone
Right.
because it's all been decimated, or buying produce or meat like available in any store at any time.
Having
Paper.
pencils, having just basic human interaction, like
Yeah.
healthy human interaction, like that's important. It's meaningful. I think Soylent Green, like you watch it as a kid, you don't really soak in a lot. Watch it as an adult,
Yeah.
you're kind of like,
Yeah,
oh,
and
shit.
it's getting like more and more oh shit as time goes on because, well, for two reasons. One, all of those things that you take for granted and love are gone. Like only rich people can afford like those things now. There's a girl who I think she's like a live-in prostitute that the building provides.
Yeah, so women
Yeah.
are known as like furniture, and they are a part of these apartments where men can come. Well, not just men, where men and women can rent out, and they rent the women as well. They come
So when the
with
one tenant
apartments, so they're
dies,
furnishings.
she's like, I'm going to stay around for the next tenant. Like, that's just my job.
Yeah, so it kind of like
Mhm.
desperate times mentality, right? But it's kind of disheartening because we're at a time, and the women are all dressed well. They look like they're well taken care of, but it comes at a super big price, almost, if you will.
I mean,
because they do get abused. They do have to endure this.
It seems
stuff.
that they think it's worth it because they get to live in this nice apartment and eat nice food and all this stuff in a world where you would be potentially on the street, but at what cost? Yeah, it's a very good commentary on that.
Yeah, and cost of living is so high that several people choose to just sleep in stairwells, sleep wherever
the church is like packed with
essentially
all the floor and pews and everything is just full of people.
Yeah, there's no room in the churches anymore for trying to give people some form of shelter. Even the detective, he's a detective. He's a decorated cop, and he's poor as hell. Like he just can't afford it. He's trying to take care of this guy.
Cost of living is so
and,
high that even when the rich girl goes shopping, she's like buys like a can of beans and like a head of lettuce and like tomatoes and stuff. It's like, I don't know, a dozen things on the counter. To us, it would be like $10 or something at King Soopers. And he's like, it'll be like 276 Ds, which I assume are dollars. And I'm like, okay, so we have a lot of inflation right now, but it's not that bad yet. This is a warning sign.
Well, I mean, shit, man. I just went and bought like just a few groceries. Let's see here. I bought how many items?
Getting a peek into Dustin's personal life right now.
Okay, so I bought less than 10 items. Well, about 10 items. Just to like get through the week, right?
Fill some gaps.
Hey, because I'm sleeping during the day, so I don't need to go hectic. Right. And just those 10 items was about $60. And they were not like, and I went for like, hey, what's on sale? What is here? Yeah. Cost of living is ridiculous. And to keep it consistent with the movie, the fact that even the processed food, which the mentality behind the processed food was cheaper, like we can feed the public for, it's cheaper to do it this way. We can do this, especially with like fresh food. Always,
farming is so difficult and expensive, or potentially even outlawed. That I mean, we kind of have that now, where regulation is so severe that they don't want cow farmers to be raising a lot of cows because their farts will ruin the climate or whatever. And so So then beef becomes more scarce, milk becomes
Right.
more scarce. And so they're trying to supplant the food people need to eat. So they're trying to find some alternate source. And they have Soylent is a company that makes Soylent Yellow and Soylent Red, which are like concentrated vegetables, which look disgusting. And like, it looks like, what the astronauts used to eat, like freeze-dried stuff. It looks like that, but everybody eats it. And then Soylent Green is a new product, supposedly made of plankton, sea plankton.
Well, yeah, it's this new product that's supposed to have like all the essentials that the human body actually needs. It's supposed to be like crazy good for you with all the high proteins and all this stuff for you. So it's in high demand, and they talk about like it's kind of hard to get.
It only comes out like once a week.
Just the Soylent
so
Green.
There's like big markets. It's like if you've seen like old footage of like communist countries where people are like lined up in the street to get water and get food and stuff. That is exactly what this is New York City. And instead of the 8 million people there are now, there's like 40 million people in New York City.
Yeah, 40 million people in New York City. It is completely impoverished. Like, it's just the worst. If you need, I mean, it's not a feel good story, folks. It's not, but it's a very good story. It's a very good movie. But if you need something to chuckle at, you've already seen it in the preview where they have football helmets from 1970s.
I didn't know if they're like football helmets or like cricket helmets.
That's kind of funny. Well, maybe they're softball helmets or something. I don't know. But the face guard is a football helmet. The brim almost looks like they just glued those on.
Yeah, it looks like a baseball helmet with a football face guard or something.
So
and they're
they
like
use
riot
sports
control
equipment
cops because
for this.
people are out of control, and makes sense
for the cops.
But the best thing about it, is that at its core, it's actually a really interesting like detective mystery story, just in like a science fiction candy shell, I think.
Yep. Well, yeah, because he's still trying to solve. Like, there's still a murder that happened. He's still trying to piece together, hey, I'm finding, like, there's connections to this murder. There's more to this than just that guy died. Like, there's something bigger going on here. And it all seems to stem to the company, Soylent. So, it's an interesting movie. Did you know, okay, to me, and I was like, this can't just be the fact that we live in, like, high def age when it comes to movies, right? Because the rest of the movie you can tell is pretty dated, made in 73, is pretty grainy. But those shots of the video monitors where they're showing like nature, I was like watching the movie, dude, and I'm going, that looks like crazy high def. That looks crazy detailed, very beautiful. There's no graininess on it. It does not look dated. This looks like if I put on a nature show now, this almost looks like it could compare to that. Wait a minute, 1973. The cameras were not that
like
good. What the hell is
HD,
happening with this
Discovery show or whatever?
Well, it made me wonder if like the transfer when they took Soylent Green from like the actual film stock and transferred it digitally, if they didn't punch all those images up quite a bit just to really sell the whole meaning of that scene. I'm trying not to say what the scene is, but that would be one of the very few times where I would be okay with the punch up or the like, hey, let's clean this picture up a little bit. That would be the only time I think it would work and be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, dude, the masks, still, even seeing them in this preview, I'm like, their masks are smaller than the ones that we're all being forced to wear, but that
there's a lot,
this is fucking
lot of stuff where even though we're not quite there yet, we're a lot closer than we were in the 70s, obviously, and it's a lot of conversations that we're having now. The alternate food source thing, I see so many things where they're trying to like replace real food with mysterious plant-based, like,
well, it's all synthetic.
You
And
go to
there's
like
I mean,
McDonald's or Subway or whatever, and they're like, "This is chicken," and then somebody tests it, and they're like, "Yeah, there's barely any chicken in here. It's all soy and filler and all this stuff." So you don't really know what it is. I'm totally fine with like people being like, "We need more food. Let's make food out of crickets," and tell people it's crickets. That's totally fine. But then to tell people it's chicken or beef and it not be that, it's so sketch. And that's a lot of what this movie is. This movie has so many parts where it's a great dystopian movie where the whole point of a lot of those movies seems to be the we end up in that place because of the lack of morality and how important morality is, because you get into the future, and whether it's The Purge or Soylent Green, and everybody is just fighting to survive at any cost. There's no morality. Like, all of these characters are corrupt. They're just trying to get by. Even though he's a detective, he walks into the place while he's investigating a murder and just starts stealing stuff. He's like, I'm going to take all of this stuff because he's dead. He's not going to need it. And then along the way, the coroner gets a cut. The chief of the police gets a cut. All these people like get a cut of what they made off of this guy's murder, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's a very unique dystopian look at the then future, now current times. Luckily, we aren't there. The amount of like green smog that is New York City and Soylent Green, I'm glad is not the case, but there's still a ton of smog.
There would certainly be more smog if we lived in New York City, for sure. Yeah, there's a whole lot of like environmental things, not as severe as Geostorm, obviously, but still they're like.
But I think it handles the environmental stuff really, really well, and they don't do it into a point of like, oh, humans suck, we're horrible species.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a pretty stupid species sometimes, but okay.
Right.
I don't know how you can't. One comedian says you can't fix stupid.
It's timeless.
I mean, look. But I think the way that they talk about and handle like the environmentalism stuff is really well. I really like how they do it in this one, where it's just, hey, New York's been so overrun with this overpopulation, just, this company doing their shit. That the wildlife and nature and the environment is like a memory that's so beautiful that only a few people remember that time. I really like how they talk about like, hey, you missed the important things because we're so caught up in all of this extra shit. I think Saul might be one of the most important characters, and I haven't watched him since I was a child, but watching him this week, I was like, I feel like I need to rewatch this movie more times, obviously, because it's good, but also like, I feel like I need to soak in Saul.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to hear his words more, because he doesn't talk a lot, and what he does a lot of the movie is very just like little facial expressions or little nuances that he does, But the whole dinner scene together, I was like, oh my God, this feels important, because he's trying to share something. He's trying to like get Thorne to have an experience of like
something real and rare that you may never have again. I feel like Saul is he could very well be our generation or our kids' generation, where he is an old man and he keeps telling people, I remember when you could get meat in any store, or you could get eggs, you could get real butter and lettuce. And so they just like they find some lettuce, they eat it, and Thorne's like, it's lettuce, like it's not that exciting, but Saul is like, this is the best. I can't believe I missed it.
But he's so ecstatic, and when he serves the stew that he gets to make with that beef, I was like, man, I would eat that. That actually looks kind of good. I would eat that. And right out of the pot like that, man, that's such
two bachelors. Yeah,
it's such a like. Who needs?
Yeah, the whole like the green smog and the environment and everything is very interesting. Obviously, it's very important, the fact that the Earth has been spoiled, or the ground, the soil has been poisoned, so they can't grow food very well.
Yeah.
And even New York City, like Times Square and the Central Park is what I mean. Central Park is like, they have like a tree conservatory. It has like 3 bushes in this one little building that they're trying to conserve these trees, and it's so sad. But there's just like a general
It is sad.
unappreciation for life, not just the earth and animals and plants and stuff, but people as well. And that's kind of a central theme of Soylent Green, where people, obviously you're in New York City, there's 40 million people, you're all on top of each other. But when this one guy gets murdered, there's no real like ceremony for him. They just kind of like take him to a waste disposal plant and dump his body. Like nobody really cares anymore.
Well, yeah, they ask like, what are we
and
doing
she's
with
like,
the
I
body?
remember when my grandma
dispose of
died,
it,
we had
just
like
get
a
rid of it.
ceremony. I was like a little kid, but we had like a ceremony. And yeah, nobody really cares anymore, just because if people are constantly dying, it's not a big deal. And then when they have like the riots, there's these scoops.
Yeah.
I think they call them the scoops that come in to like, they just like scoop up human beings and dump them in the back like big trash trucks. And that's their riot control. But they're just like, doesn't matter if you're crushing people, killing people. It's just like, pick up these people, throw them out, get them out of here.
Right. Which I was like, at first, you see it and you kind of chuckle because you're like, well, they're literally scooping people up. But then the more you think about it, you're like, this is kind of fucked up because there's it's a carelessness. Because, they literally scoop up. If you happen to be there, you're getting scooped up and you're dumped.
Yeah.
And
Treated,
that's like the last people are going to see of you. We don't know
like trash.
where they took those people or what actually happens to them. And there's no respect for life, like you said. It's just it's a very interesting story with a lot of layers. This would be one of those movies, man. Watching it, where I was like, this would be a deep dive worthy.
Yeah, a lot of good details, like you said. Because the environment is so like, they have like a small line about the greenhouse effect or something, but you can tell it's hot constantly. Like everybody's sweaty throughout the whole movie. Yeah.
It feels dirty.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie feels
so everything's
dirty.
just too warm to grow food and all this stuff, even if you didn't poison the soil.
Yeah. It's a very interesting movie. It's one, and I'm a big advocate for younger generations to visit old films. Like, you need to go back, rewatch these movies. The stories are pretty good,
especially when they hold up as well.
They
as
have a lot to say. And back then, and a lot of them do hold up, and a lot of them were made to kind of be like a voice of reason, if you will, or at least try to be. So I think younger generations need to revisit these movies. You should live in the past almost, well, to a point, folks, to a point. But yeah, I think Soylent Green, like watching it as adult, like, okay, this is a heavy movie. This was not like my memory of this movie as a child was kind of different than rewatching it.
Planet of the Apes is, I feel like Planet of the Apes is more fun or entertaining. Like there's a big deal. Obviously, it's, if you think about it really hard, it is a pretty sad and tragic story, but it's not as like in your face. I'm like, no, this is a sad and tragic life that these people live.
Yeah, I really liked Soylent Green. I think I have a grown respect for it. I've always been a fan of it, but now I feel like there's a new level of respect for this movie that I have. So I look forward to rewatching it again. And like I said, who knows, maybe sometime down the line, at some point, we'll do like a full dive into it. But
that's true.
We already have a pretty heavy slate coming up.
Yeah.
So
as
we'll
close as we are to
later
their version of 2022, I'm still glad that we're pretty far off. And I think that that's good.
Yeah, we're not there, which is
makes me
that's
happy. And it
nice
makes me
thing.
I mean, it does its job of making me appreciate where I'm at and hope and work towards not getting to that place in the future.
Yeah, kind of makes you want to like maybe, and I'm totally guilty, as is like almost every person on the planet. When I went grocery shopping, it was kind of funny because I was like, maybe we don't buy as many microwavable things. Like maybe I should buy more fresh product because I'm human and I'm guilty of the lazy grocery shopping of like, can I heat it up? Yep, cool. So I did buy like a lot of fresh ingredients after watching Soylent Green. And so I don't want to give the movie complete credit for that decision, but I would be lying if I said it didn't at least have a little bit of
I'm the biggest hypocrite on the planet, and I definitely had McDonald's yesterday, but this movie made me really think, because I watched it after I had McDonald's, and it reminded me of, I don't know if you've seen, there's a doctor who has had a McDonald's meal just like sitting on his shelf for, I think.
Dude, not just the doctor. There's been a school teacher that did it, and there was like, I think it was just some mom or whatever did this experiment of leaving a McDonald's cheeseburger just sitting out for the longest time.
This doctor specifically, he's had it on the shelf for like 10 years. And so he's like, I put it on there the year my daughter was born. She's in 10th, like 8th, 3rd, 4th grade now. And I was like, damn. But yeah, he's like chicken nuggets, a hamburger, fries, hasn't changed at all. It's like it doesn't do anything normal real food would do, like mold or degrade or whatever. And I'm like, it's terrifying.
Yeah, the degrading process isn't there. Like the most I've seen some of them talk about is, hey, it's a little like
left,
it's hard. That's it. Like it gets a little hard, but there's no like, it should have degraded. It should have molded. It should have at this point.
What does it tell you when
turn into something
mold
real
doesn't
disgusting?
even want to eat it? It's like, I'm good. I'll skip. I don't need that.
Right.
Hard pass.
You know what? That shit. No, not for me, man. Like, so folks, check out Soylent Green. So in retrospect, I mean, looking at their 2022, so we watched. Well, I watched 9. You watched 10. Compared to now, I'm kind of glad we are nowhere near the futures.
Yeah, I hope these futures are
all
at least
these
another
movies.
100 or 2 years off at best, at worst.
I would hope maybe we start getting our shit together as a species, and maybe just kind of there's some things we need to stop doing, and this isn't a
in general
picking side thing. It's hate people.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the important things of filmmaking and storytelling is to tell these stories, even if they are dated earlier in the future than they should be. That can be a good thing. That can work for them, I think, even though the time frame in the movie isn't the exact same as it is here in our time. It doesn't have to be, because I think the point of the movie was to tell a warning story. At least the good ones were telling a warning of, hey, guys, let's not end up here in 30 years. Let's be in a better place. And we are in a better place than what those worlds were, but we could be even better than we are, because it's a little too crazy.
Yeah. I mean, some of them, like the alien invasion ones, those I don't take as having any warning. The Purge, to me, the way that especially after how I kind of interpreted that film, I would say that has a huge warning for us. Dire need, please stop being this way, because eventually, if the cancel culture continues the route that it's been going, I mean, eventually you have taken all characteristics away from people.
Yeah, for sure.
That you view are different than you. And I think that's really fucked up and wrong. You're taking individualism. You're taking away. You're taking the right to make a mistake and learn from it. And how are we supposed to grow as a species if we can't learn from our mistakes?
You're very right. God, and even if you don't subscribe to the cancel culture thing, you just take it at face value. Having those blind allegiance to politicians and laws and all of that stuff is dangerous. And the whole, I think, point of those movies is, hey, this is legal, so it's totally fine. Legality is not a substitute for morality. And so just because something is legal doesn't mean it's okay. The Holocaust was legal. Slavery was legal. The Purge is legal. There are things that, there are things that are right and wrong. And
that doesn't make
that
it
is the
right.
best way to navigate towards the future, I think.
Yeah, I just that my interpretation of the Purge, that one kind of struck me hard this week when I rewatched it. Because when I first saw it, I took it at face value of like, oh, it's about, hey, the country like not only made this day for everyone to commit whatever crime they want, but they're like encouraging people
Even
to go out
incentivizing
and slaughter each other and be as horrible and evil as you can imagine, because you get 12 hours.
I wondered how
to do
time
it.
zones work with that. I was like, if you travel across the country, you could get like, because they're like, it's from like,
oh man,
7
I didn't
PM
even
to
think
7
of that.
AM. And I was like, well, not on the East Coast or the West Coast, or what are we talking about here?
Well, but they do all have like, because isn't there the purge alarms that go off to let you know when it starts? So depending on what time zone you're in, I would imagine your alarm will go off, and that's when
you could start in one time zone and then move across. I don't know why I'm trying to extend the time frame that I could murder people, but theoretically, in Minecraft, I could do that.
And then Soylent Green, like I think there's a lot to take from Soylent Green, a lot of messages, a lot of things we need to learn, or at least take into consideration of the path that we're on. Because honestly, I'm not saying we're going to be the ending of Soylent Green, but I'm saying like that world, that way it looks with like that kind of overpopulation, that kind of just neglect on human life. That is definitely
there's so many things that
we can
do now, that we are doing now, to just not take care of things or overregulate things or overtax things that kill farms and farming and all this stuff. And then 10 years from now, you're like, hey, why is beef so hard to get? Why are vegetables so hard to get? Well, it's because, 10 years ago, people couldn't have farms, or the people that did have farms couldn't leave them to their kids because you had the, death tax and all this stuff. So, hey, let's maybe take care of things, make it sustainable moving forward. I want to keep the things we have. I like meat. I like vegetables. I want to keep them forever. And how do we do that? That's what we need.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think people need to stop looking at just exact now. And some people would make the argument, no, we're trying to look down the road, but you're not. Mm-hmm. And if you are only looking at this one sliver of down the road. You're not looking at like the effects that a lot of our decisions now, or even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, are having now. The big picture is a lot more than just like...
You're not going to solve things by replacing cow milk with almond milk. Especially when...
Right, especially when they come out and like there's been this huge thing about almond milk. If they're like, it's so bad for the environment. It is the majority of the reason for all the droughts in California, is because it takes a shitload of water to grow almonds and to squeeze milk out of them. And so maybe cows aren't so bad. Right. I just I think there is a lot. I'm glad that we're not to those kinds of dystopian futures that these movies show. But I think there's some stuff to take away, at least from the good ones.
The main thing to take away is that there are
a couple of these movies
controlling the political global government, and those werewolves need to be stopped by aliens or vampires.
Yep. Or, giant space station nets.
That's true. You could assassinate people
weather by
dropping
bombs into tornadoes.
Weather. An option.
That's
all of these were plot points
point in the Geostorm
we just
people.
said.
I wasn't just talking about it. They literally...
I think they got it.
we can't count on someone jumping through a wormhole
Yeah.
and then having to explain to scientists what wormholes are during a time where
Yeah.
wormholes have already been talked
I
about.
think we covered it.
Mark Hamill can't
It's
do
true.
it all, guys.
It's
He's
true.
already saved one galaxy. He's not going to be able to save them all. So
Okay. I think that's good. I think that's all. Hey, what are we doing next
Oh
week?
man.
I know we just
Hey, next week.
talked about this.
Sorry,
the other
I'm
day.
trying to
We're doing a
multitask at
deep
the same
dive
time.
into the movie Under the Silver Lake, which came out not that long ago, but I started watching it. It's a really crazy, wild movie, even crazier than Mulholland Drive, and so I told Dustin he needs to watch it. I think you'll like it more than this because there's no really bad. It's not bad like a lot of the movies this week, but I am forcing you to watch a movie you've never seen like this week.
It's true. It's true. You're forcing me to watch a handful of movies in the next coming weeks. This one included.
Well, if you came up with
And
episode
I don't know
ideas,
how I
wouldn't
feel
have
about
to
that,
do it.
Jake. Dude, I have been,
Yeah,
and then
it's
you're
true.
like, you know what we
It's my
should do
fault.
instead, and I'm like, all right. So you got me watching Under the Silver Lake. I have high hopes for
Yeah.
it just because it's with Andrew Garfield, and I really like Andrew Garfield.
Okay.
I'm going to call out some movie fans though right now. Okay, y'all were like ignoring Mr. Andrew Garfield's career and acting abilities and
Right.
just his incredible talent for the longest fucking time. And now you're all coming out of the woodworks
Right.
and being like, we love Andrew Garfield.
You would
Where
think
the
they would
fuck have
happen
you
at
guys
least
been
after
for like the
Hacksaw
last
Ridge
decade?
and not
Because-
take Spider-Man in order to do it.
Right. Like this dude is
Yeah.
he's an acting
What was that
juggernaut. This guy is
Scorsese movie?
amazing. I've been a huge
Silent?
fan of Garfield.
Was that Scorsese
well, since I
movie,
saw him in The
Silent?
Social Network. Huh?
Where he's like a priest in Japan or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Social
yeah.
Network. Good.
Yeah, where he
Good
plays the
call.
priest. He's an amazing actor.
Mhm.
This dude's range is everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm calling you people out. Where have you been? Because the dude has been making amazing films and throwing down some acting chops that, dude, they're kind of schooling people. So I'm excited to watch him in this one. It's like a super unknown movie, and I'm really excited for that. You did tell me that what
Yeah.
you had seen
Better, but
was
pretty
better
weird.
than Mulholland
Yeah.
Drive, so let's hope it maintains that. Because
Okay. A little bit.
did not
Yeah.
hold on. Can you hear her? Can you a little bit? I need something I can throw at her.
So we'll just put her singing in the
I
episode.
don't have anything. Child! Your singing's officially in the episode.
Awkward. Yeah.
She has that, oh shit. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And people go watch Andrew Garfield
damn.
films and be a real fan, not just a bandwagon fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's been like kind of annoying me seeing all these people coming out and being like, yes, he deserves the love.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the
for his
same
talent,
thing
but
for
where have
people
these
suddenly
people been?
praising
Are you kidding?
Topher Grace, the other guy, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies, and they're like, "Hey, yeah,
Tobey Maguire?
Maguire Spider-Man's not that bad." Yeah, no shit, it's probably like the best ones, the first two at least. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
well, the first two, that third one is unanimously horrible. But yeah, I'm like, guys, these actors are still around and Tobey Maguire's still making movies for a reason. If you ever want to watch Tobey Maguire throw down, he's so freaking intense in this movie, but it's called Brothers. It's him, Jake Gyllenhaal, and I forget who plays the actress.
yeah.
That movie is intense as hell. Holy shit. Check that one out, folks. So you got me watching that. And then we're doing video game adaptations. This one should be funny.
I've played a lot of games back.
Neither
in
of
the
us are
day.
gamers.
Yeah,
back in the day.
I've
back
never
in the day,
played
but
Uncharted,
currently-
which is the
current
big one coming
times,
out
we're
soon.
not gamers. Yeah, I've never played that. I think the last video game I actually played was Link's
At least
Awakening
you've played on a Switch.
On the Switch.
That's pretty current. I haven't played on a Switch.
And Animal Crossing. Yeah. And then
you're one of those people.
Well, I bought the Switch during COVID because everyone did. But I did so that I could play games with my daughter. So but I made the joke that I thought was real.
Which I do.
You just want me to watch Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme
and
that movie is
and Mortal Kombat also.
But I thought that's where it would end, and then you were like, "Nope."
Yeah,
dude. Okay, I'll watch Mortal Kombat regardless because I like Mortal Kombat.
yeah.
As bad as it is, it's entertaining as hell, so I'll still watch it. But then you were like, "No." I just wanted to rewatch Super Mario Brothers, and I went,
yes.
No.
Oh my god, yes.
What a dick!
You gave me such a hard time in our
what a dick
Guilty Pleasures episode, which is I talked about it. It was on my list, and I was like, I need to find a way to get Dustin to watch this movie again.
It was, and you have, and I can't believe that in 2 weeks I will be watching it again. Yeah, we got a big slate.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, fair. Yeah. Yep. The inferior one. Correct. Yeah. We'll be debating which one is better and why. Yeah, there's going to be some yelling, but I plan to have a very planned out and detailed rhetorical and intelligent debate points. I'm going to have point and counterpoint. I'm going to plan it out and take it very seriously, so be ready for that. Stallone is more jacked. Sandra Bullock's in it. It's great. That was a callback. I know. That was a callback when we had that conversation in that episode. It came up that we were like, yeah, Rob Schneider is in it. And like, wait, no, that's a different movie. Taco Bell, I think we talked about. Yeah, that's a slightly different movie. Partly similar, though. Okay. So, yeah. That's good. That's 5. We never tell them this far in advance what we're doing. We're very prepared. That's the moral of the story. We're prepared for a lot of episodes to come up, and it is weird. Yeah. Trying to have a baby, people. Legacy. Yes. My own minion sidekick. Yeah. 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 But that's a couple months away still. 2.5 months ish. So A lot of episodes playing. It's true. It's true. Oh well. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to know what you think about filmmakers that date movies. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it make sense? Is it silly? When does it work? When does it not? So hit us up. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You know our opinions, so we'd like to hear from you. All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Some of the colors of the hoodies I've been waiting on. The, yeah. Yep. I think that's it. Thanks, everybody. Love you. Bye.